Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever it is you're reading this. This is day 8 of Roald Dahl's James and the Giant Peach. We are picking up chapter 20, 21, and 22, and this is just after they've gotten on the peach and the sharks are in the water, chomping at the bottom, causing this peach to sink. And they are brainstorming and trying to come up with a way out of this problem. Well, there is something that I believe we might try, James Henry Trotter said slowly. I'm not saying it'll work. Well, tell us, cried the earthworm. Tell us quick. We'll try anything you say, but hurry, hurry, said the centipede. Be quiet and let the boy speak, said the ladybug. Go on, James. They all moved closer to him. There was a longish pause. Go on, they cried frantically. Go on! And all the time while they were waiting, they could hear the sharks threshing around in the water below them. It was enough to make anyone frantic. Come on, James, the ladybug said, coaxing him. I'm afraid it's no good after all, James murmured, shaking his head. I'm terribly sorry. I forgot. We don't have any string. We'd need hundreds of yards of string to make this work. What sort of string? Asked the old green grasshopper sharply. Any sort, just so long as it's strong. But my dear boy, that's exactly what we do have. We've got all you want. How? Where? The silkworm, cried the old green grasshopper. Did you ever notice the silkworm? She's still downstairs. She never moves. She just lies there sleeping all day. But we can easily wake her up and make her spin. And what about me, may I ask? Said Miss Spider. I can spin just as well as any silkworm. What's more, I can spin patterns. Can you make enough between you? Asked James. As much as you want. And quickly? Of course, of course. And would it be strong? The strongest there is. It's as thick as your finger. But why? What are you going to do? I'm going to lift this peach clear out of the water, James announced firmly. You're mad, cried the earthworm. It's our only chance. The boy's crazy. He's joking. Go on, James, the ladybug said gently. How are you going to do it? Skyhooks, I suppose, jeered the centipede. Seagulls, James answered calmly. The place is full of them. Look up there. And they all looked up and they all saw a great mass of seagulls wheeling round and round in the sky. It's going to take a long silk string, James went on, and I'm going to loop one end of it around a seagull's neck, and then I'm going to tie the other end to the stem of the peach. He pointed to the peach stem, which was standing up like a short, thick mast in the middle of the deck. I'm at the stage in my life where glasses and no glasses, I can't see anything anyway. The book has to be like super close for me to read it. And that's why I'm making a lot of mistakes. Normally I'm perfect. Then I'm going to get another seagull and do the same thing, and then another and another. Ridiculous, they shouted. Absurd, poppycock, balderdash, madness. All of these are synonyms for he's loony. The old green grasshopper said, how can a few seagulls lift an enormous thing like this up into the air? And all of us as well, it would take hundreds, thousands. Well, there's no shortage of seagulls, James answered. Look for yourself. We'll probably need 400, 500, 600, maybe even 1,000. I don't know. I shall simply go on hooking them up to the stem until we have enough to lift us. They'll be bound to lift us in the end. It's like balloons. You give someone enough balloons to hold, I mean, really enough, then up he goes. And the seagull has far more lifting power than the balloon. Only we had time to do it. If only I were not sunk first by those awful sharks. There's a little picture of James saying, hey, it's seagulls up in the sky. You're absolutely off your head, said the earthworm. How on earth do you suppose to get a loop of string around the seagull's neck? I suppose you're going to fly up there and catch it yourself? The boy's dotty, said the centipede. Let him finish, said the ladybug. Go on, James. How would you do it? With bait. Bait. What sort of bait? With a worm, of course. Seagulls love worms. Didn't you know that? And luckily for us, we have here the biggest, fattest, pinkest, juiciest earthworm in the world. You can stop right there, said the earthworm sharply. That's quite enough. Go on, the others said, beginning to grow interested. Go on. The seagulls have already spotted him, James continued. That's why there's so many of them circling around, but they dare not come down to get him while all the rest of us are standing here. And so this is what— Stop, cried the earthworm. Stop, 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 stop. I won't have it. I refuse. Be quiet, said the centipede. You mind your own business. My dear earthworm, you're going to be eaten anyway. So what difference does it make whether it's sharks or seagulls? I won't do it. Why don't we hear what the plan is first, said the old green grasshopper. I don't give a hoot what the plan is, cried the earthworm. I'm not going to be pecked to death by a bunch of seagulls. You will be a martyr, said the centipede. I shall respect you for the rest of my life. So will I, said Miss Spider, and your name will be in all the newspapers. Earthworm gives life to save friends. But he won't have to give his life, James told him. Now, listen to me. This is what we'll do. Chapter 21. Why, it's absolutely brilliant, cried the old green grasshopper when James had explained his plan. The boy's a genius, the centipede announced. Now I can keep my boots on after all. Oh, I shall be pecked to death, wailed the poor earthworm. Of course you won't. I will, I know I will, and I won't even be able to see them coming at me because they have no eyes. James went over and put an arm gently around the earthworm's shoulders. Shoulders, earthworm? I won't let them touch you, he said. I promise I won't. But we've got to hurry. Look down there. There were more sharks than ever now coming around the beach. The water was boiling with them. There must have been 90 or 100 at least. And to the travelers on top, it certainly seemed as though the beach was sinking lower and lower into the water. Action stations, James shouted. Jump to it. There's not a moment to lose. He was the captain now. Everyone knew it. They would do whatever he told them. All hands below deck, except Earthworm, he ordered. Yes, yes, they said eagerly as they scuttled into the tunnel entrance. Come on, let's hurry. And you, Centipede, James shouted. Hop downstairs, get that silkworm to work at once. Tell her to spin as she's never spun before. Our lives depend upon it. And the same applies to you, Miss Spider. Hurry on down and start spinning. There's the earthworm, looking a little worried. Chapter 22. In a few minutes, everything was ready. It was very quiet now on top of the beach. There was nobody in sight, nobody except the earthworm. One half of the earthworm, looking like a great, thick, juicy pink sausage, lay innocently in the sun for all the seagulls to see. The other half of him was dangling down the tunnel. James was crouching close beside the earthworm, inside the tunnel entrance just below the surface, so he couldn't be seen, waiting for the first seagull. He had a loop of silk string in his hands. The old green grasshopper and the ladybug were further down in the tunnel, holding on to the earthworm's tail, ready to pull him quickly in, out of danger, as soon as James gave the word. And far below, in the great hollow stone of the peach, that's the pit, the glowworm was lighting up the room so that the two spinners, the silkworm and Miss Spider, could see what they were doing. The centipede was down there too, exhorting them both frantically to greater efforts. He was cheering them on. But he's not the nicest guy in the world, so we'll see how he does it. And every now and again, James could hear his voice coming up faintly from the depths, shouting, "Spin, silkworm, spin, you great lazy brute! Faster, faster, or we'll throw you to the sharks." "Here comes the first seagull," whispered James. I'm doing it in the classroom and I'm attracting attention. "Here comes the first seagull," whispered James. "Keep still now, earthworm, keep still. The rest of you get ready to pull." "Please don't let it spike me, please don't let it spike me," begged the earthworm. I won't. Shh." Out of the corner of one eye, James watched the seagull as it came swooping down toward the earthworm, and then suddenly it was so close that he could see its small black eyes and its curved beak, and the beak was open, ready to grab a nice piece of flesh out of the earthworm's back. "And pull!" shouted James. The old green grasshopper and the ladybug gave the earthworm's tail an enormous tug, and like magic, the earthworm disappeared into the tunnel. At the same time, up went James's hand, and the seagull flew right into the loop of silk that he was holding out. The loop, which had been cleverly made, tightened just the right amount, but not too much, around its neck, and the seagull was captured. There's the picture of it. "Hooray!" shouted the old green grasshopper, peering out of the tunnel. "Well done, James!" And up flew the seagull with James paying out the silk string as it went. He gave it about 50 yards, then tied the string to the stem of the peach. "Next one," he shouted, jumping back into the tunnel. "Up you get, earthworm. Bring up some more silk, centipede." "Oh, I don't like this at all," wailed the earthworm. "It only just missed me. I even felt the wind on my back as it went swooshing past." "Shh," whispered James. "You keep still. Here comes another one." So they did it again and again and again and again, and the seagulls kept coming, and James caught them one after the other and tethered them to the peach stem. 100 seagulls, he shouted, wiping the sweat from his face. "Keep going," they cried. "Keep going, James." 200 seagulls, 300 seagulls, 400 seagulls. The sharks, as though sensing that they were in danger of losing their prey, were hurling themselves at the peach more furiously than ever, and the peach was sinking lower and lower still in the water. 500 seagulls, James shouted. "Silkworm says she's running out of silk," yelled the centipede from below. "She says she can't keep it up much longer, nor can Miss Spider." She's not married, she's Miss. "Well, tell them they've got to," James answered. "They can't stop now." "We're lifting," somebody shouted. "No, we're not. I felt it. Put on another seagull, quick." "Quiet, everybody, quiet. Here's one coming now." This was the 501st seagull, and the moment that James caught it and tethered it to the stem with all the others, the whole enormous peach suddenly started rising up slowly out of the water. "Look out, here we go, hold on, boys." But then it stopped, and there it hung. It hovered and swayed, but it went no higher. The bottom of it was just touching the water. It was like a delicately balanced scale that needed only the tiniest push to tip it one way or the other. "One more will do it," shouted the old green grasshopper, looking out of the tunnel. "We're almost there." And now came the big moment. Quickly, the 502nd seagull was caught and harnessed to the peach stem. And then suddenly, but slowly, majestically, like some fabulous golden balloon with all the seagulls straining at the strings above, the giant peach rose up, dripping out of the water, began climbing toward the heavens. All right, I hope you enjoyed chapters 20 and 21 and 22. And chapter 23 is coming tomorrow. I hope you're reading along at home. And I hope that you explore more books after this one. All right. See you tomorrow.